Hey, what's going on, everybody? I've got Chris from Fire Dogs with me today. Really excited about this interview on the channel. Been trying to put this one together for a little while, but Chris was in Hawaii having a good time with the family, and we were finally able to get him on. So, if you can, Chris, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your company over at Fire Dogs.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it, Blake, man. It's been a while since we've been on the phone together, so it's been fun to get to catch up a little bit. Uh, I used to own a junk removal company, and I became Fire Dogs back in 2022, um, about 8 months ago, 10 months ago now. Um, I owned a company called Four Alarm Junk Removal, which was my part-time gig when I was a fireman full time, and I got approached with an opportunity to come into Fire Dogs as a full time employee, and so that's what I did. And here I am, going about 8 years strong on junk removal now. Still enjoying it, still having fun, still trying to make a journey of it.
Yeah, and for those of you really in any part of the journey for junk removal, Chris in this interview is going to be really important. I really, number one, value your opinion. I think you've went through a lot, have a lot of expertise. You mentioned 8 years, and it's not just the 8 years of experience. I think it's some of the things you've kind of went through with this new course, right? And some of the things you've seen. But even before that, you were extremely educated. You know, we talked a lot, working together, just talking about the things that you tried. You basically had tried everything, right? You'd went through different methods to gain business. You're in a major market, a very competitive market. So you'll have a lot of good insights in this video for guys who not only are just starting out, but guys who might be stuck at a certain plateau, or maybe just trying to accomplish a new goal that they just haven't been able to get to yet, because every step of the way, there's new challenges as we continue to grow our business, whether it be junk removal or really anything business wise. So I'll start kind of with your advice for those who I would say typically starting out, but maybe even, as I mentioned, stuck at a certain plateau. What would your advice be to someone who's brand new or stuck in a rut maybe of reaching a new level in their business? Because you've kind of went through, I'm sure, both of those
Yeah,
phases. What would your advice be to them?
I think my advice, and not just to junk removal, but to any entrepreneur, is really understand the business and the metrics before you start trying to grow. One of the things that I've been taught is top line is for vanity, bottom line's for sanity, right? Does it sound cool to say I made $1 million? Of course it does. Everybody wants that, right? But the truth is, if you make $1 million and you only put 50,000 in the bank, you're going to be really disappointed. If you make 300,000 and you put 50,000 in the bank, well, you're going to be a lot happier. Uh, so really understanding those metrics and understanding where your money is going, how you're spending your money, what is the percentage of marketing that you're going to spend on? What is the percentage of direct labor and employees? What's your just percentage of administrative labor? What is, all these things that you really need to hone in on before you want to grow that top line. And that top line is going to grow naturally as you grow your business if you continue to do some. So I think really understanding your business from the ground as you're going through is super important. There's guys who chase that top line because they want to say I made $1 million, but I would rather run a $300,000 company instead of $1 million company with a lot more headaches and make the same amount of money would be very disappointing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I talk about it actually a lot in the sales calls I'm in, because when I bring up goals, and I'll talk about your goals for 2023 shortly,
Mm.
everybody, I feel like they want to give me like the biggest goal possible, even if they don't believe in it. And what I mean by that is they'll say they want to be like the 1-800 got junk of their area, but I don't know if they truly comprehend what that's like and what the expenses and the level of frustration and stress levels. Not everybody's cut out for that. And I always say I'm perfectly fine with you telling me your goal is 30K a month or 25 or 40K a month, because you might actually be happier with a 30K, 40K a month operation with maybe 2 trucks, right? Than you will be with 5 or 6 or 10, because not everybody's cut out for that level of business, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that that's where you need to be. Now, of course, if that is your goal, there's nothing wrong with that goal either, right? But there's going to be challenges ahead, as you mentioned. You want to make sure that you're profitable at that level, because the more that you grow, the harder it is with those margins, right? Things start to slip. You have different expenses. And I think that's a great point, because at the end of the day, if you're a $1.5 million operation, but you're bringing home just as much as you would have as a $300,000 operation, you're going to have a lot more stress and you're not going to be very happy about that when you look at those numbers and you see and you do that comparison. And I'll tell you, not just in junk removal, but business in general, we've experienced levels of that, where we've grown. And I look back and I'm like, I'm taking home around the same money I took in last year. You know what I mean? At times, and like, we're double the size. And those things happen, and you have to really get a grasp of them. And that's just leveling up as a business owner in general. And most people don't know their numbers. So that's a great point. If you don't know your numbers, you need to figure them out. Because if you don't even know what you're bringing home, that's what you're working towards, right? That's how you build.
Nothing bothers me more than you ask somebody, and I'm like, how much did you make last year? And they're like, I made 300,000. I'm like, no, how much did you make? And they're like, oh, I don't, and it's like, dude, that's the whole point.
Yes.
Nobody shows up to a job and they go, okay, you have the job. Do you just go, okay? Or do you say, what's my salary going to be? Right. I mean, that's a very important part. And so understanding that. So, when people are setting goals and saying, I want to make $500,000. Okay. Sounds good. Say I want to make $500,000 and I want a 25% net profit, right? Because then you're shooting for an actual goal. Then you're shooting for something to look at. And then if you can take that and you can replicate it and you can do that times 2, now you're going to make 500,000 and the 25%, which is going to be $125,000. If you can take it to $1 million and make $250,000. Well, now you're actually replicating a plan instead of, making $1 million and then bringing home 125,000. You just increased the headaches by 2, but did not increase the reward by 2.
Yeah. And for anyone who's not at that level, and you might be watching this and you're thinking, how in the heck could you have $1 million and only bring in? Trust me, it happens. It definitely happens. You would be surprised when you get to that level. You're not paying attention how low your profit margins could actually dip.
Yeah.
So that's a really great point. And I'm sure you've navigated those waters, you know what I mean, as you've grown. And it's a constant challenge too. That's the funny thing, because as you constantly expand as a business, you're constantly evaluating and navigating that challenge as you continue.
Yeah. If you're worth anything as an entrepreneur, then, you're going to have to get comfortable with remembering the fact that you're going to have to reevaluate constantly, because day 1 and day 10,000 are not going to be the same. Hopefully they're not. Yeah. I mean, truthfully.
Yeah. If you're growing, right. Growth. So that brings me to 2023. I cannot believe we're almost in May. This year's flying by, but for the next couple quarters of the year, what is kind of your yearly goal? And maybe if you have any like short-term goals as well in the next quarter or next couple months, what are you guys sort of visualizing for Fire Dawgs on your end of things?
So my end of things is down here in Texas. So we're really working on expanding the Texas operation. We have so many major cities, and Texas is so big that there's so much ground to cover here. But that's kind of the focus on 2023 is capturing Houston as a whole. I mean, there's the population of Houston is larger than the population of Indiana. So it's like there's so much to go here, but that also means that, we do have so much competition as well. So really capturing Houston, and then and kind of expanding out from there and moving into the other larger cities of Texas.
Awesome. And are you planning on how many trucks are you guys running over there now?
In Houston?
Yeah.
We have 3.
3. You guys planning on, are you looking at expanding and adding another truck at some point? Is it more so, hey, I think we're okay with 3 trucks here in Houston and then we're expanding out further? Do you have anything like visualized with that aspect of the business?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have more trucks coming in the future. Um, yes, I mean, to answer the question, yes. Uh, with that being said, kind of transitioning into this full time, business. Back when I had it just myself with 4 Alarm, we were just 2 trucks,
Mhm.
and I really didn't have the bandwidth to go past that. Due to being a full time firefighter and all that other stuff that drug me away from it. But now I'm really getting a focus on it, and so this year is going to be really focusing on growing this Houston operation. And I think this is easily a 10 to 15 truck operation here, just in Houston alone. Which I'm going to be focusing on that for the rest of this year, and then obviously in the next year. But um, yeah, that's kind of the Houston plan.
Yeah, you guys have I mean, like you said, it's a competitive market, but I think you guys have a really solid grasp of it. And I think you were already off to a great start, even with 4 Alarm, and obviously with Fire Dogs and the branding and the things that they bring to the table as well. Just made such a really good combination. Um, and we'll just continue to help you grow as well. And you guys already had a strong foothold from the start, when I was working with you before that. But I think it just kind of, you know, fueled the fire, so to speak, in that
Yeah,
area
for
for you
sure.
guys. That's an interesting point. Let me touch on that. So I think one unique aspect that we can discuss here is, I work with one of your buddies, Cade, as well. And I think I've seen personally a lot more firefighters come into the junk removal industry. And I think you've obviously set an example with that, Cade in his area as well. That's something unique that is kind of, I think, is taking place. What would you say maybe to somebody who is perhaps watching the channel, who is a firefighter and maybe looking to do the same thing? What would your recommendations be to someone like that on getting started?
Firemen, I love firemen. I think the real pioneer here in this was Bennett Grove. He's the one who kind of pioneered this. He was Fire Dogs. He kind of pioneered the firefighter to junk removal thing. I think it just kind of fits into a firefighter's personality, right? Pick things up, put them down. It's not super hard. Most firemen are blue collars. They like to work hard. They like to get after it. So it just kind of fits the bill. I think if you're really interested in it, reach out to me and I could kind of assess each person individually, and because some people are going to be strong entrepreneurs. They're visionaries. Some people are going to be strong operators. They're not visionaries, but they're really good at getting things done. Um, I think figure out what you're good at and go for it. A lot of this boils down to customer service, and it's pretty simple. Customer service is not hard. Uh, People make it way harder than it has to be. Firemen are good at customer service. Most firemen are good at customer service, and that's because we come with a compassionate soul into each situation individually. And believe it or not, like this junk removal, you're helping people constantly. And I've had 2 ladies cry to me in the past 3 weeks, which is a little which is a little more than ordinary. But now one of them was a dad who left his daughter with this house, and she has to clean it up, and she doesn't know what to do. The other one was a father who passed away, and oddly enough, it really fits into the fireman bill, right? I've seen both of these scenarios
Yeah.
play out before, and so being able to be there for somebody and then also um, be able to reap the rewards of something I'm good at. I think firemen are good at that stuff, and they can pick things up.
Yeah, I definitely could see a trend where that continues, and obviously you mentioned Bennett, kind of getting that started, and some of you other guys sort of carrying the torch, right? Because as you continue to expand as business owners in different areas, more people are seeing that in that firefighter community, and I think it is a good fit. I've spoken to a few, and every time I feel like they are a pretty good fit. I think you
Mhm.
mentioned whether they're a visionary or operator. Most people don't know the difference between the two and what that is, but that's a very good statement. That just shows your level of understanding in business. Usually you're one or the other. You might have
Mhm.
It's rare. Some people do have aspects of a little bit of both, but usually you're one or the other. You're either the one who's ready to dive in and do the work. You know what I mean? You're the operator, or you're the person who foresees everything in the business and how it's going to run and the goals and the way that you craft it and put it together. Usually you're good at one or the other. So if you got to figure out first which skill you have. And then the second part is if you don't have the other skill, find someone who does. You know what I mean? Who you bring
Yeah,
into the business
100%.
with you that can help you fuel it, because you do need both. You really do. If you want to
Yes.
grow to a certain scale, at least. So
Yeah.
that's a good point.
I
So
think it's, I
go
think
ahead,
it's
Tom.
part of the problem. I think it's part of the problem why firemen-owned businesses in general don't go past, because most firemen are not visionaries. Most firemen are operators. That's what makes them really good firefighters. Is because we're focused in the moment, and we're focused on fixing the problem at hand. Whereas a visionary sees a problem at hand and they solve it on a mass scale into the future. Whereas an operator is going to go, problem I fix now. And
Yeah.
that's what makes, I think that's what kind of the downfall of firefighter owned businesses can be at times.
Yeah, it's tough because when you have that focus, like problem now, and you're not looking for seeing in the future, one, you're not preparing for the future problems to solve them,
Mhm.
right? So it kind of puts you in that rut, because in business, you were always going to be solving problems. Like
100%.
there's never a day where it's like, I don't have anything to do. If you're running an efficient business, like it should not be a day where you're like, I don't have a problem or something that needs to get done. And the other task at hand is figuring out which one is more important than the other, right? Prioritizing them. I run into that a lot. Me personally, I want to get everything done. I want my task list wiped for the day. And sometimes I have to look at it and be like, okay, that one really is not that important. It doesn't need to get done today. There are things that are more important that I can do right now instead of just clearing that off. I run into that challenge a lot because I'm like, I want to get it done. I want to get it done. So I think one of the last things I'll touch on has been really good information. Mistakes, right? We've all made them. This is how we grow as business owners. I really try and hammer home the fact that, like, do not be afraid to make mistakes, because that is where your growth is. If you're not making mistakes in business, you're not growing, period. So when it comes to that, it's nice to be able to not make some mistakes that other people have made and to learn before you make them, right?
Yeah.
So what mistakes have you made in the past 8 years that you really remember and you're like, I wish I would have done this differently or avoided this mistake? What comes to mind when I ask that question?
Yeah. Well, first, before we dive into the mistakes, I want to talk about, there's no way to avoid all of the mistakes. You're never going to. The biggest thing though is how you respond to those mistakes, right? Because if you make a mistake and you allow it to go here and you allow it to bury you, you're done. That's it. But if you look at a mistake and go, here's how I can solve it, there's your growth. That's where you're really starting to put it together. But as far as mistakes I've made, I'm an operator. That's just who I am. I'm a gung ho dude. If you give me a problem, I'm going to solve it. I'm not a visionary. I think that's one of the things that really attracted me to coming into Fire Dogs is Bennett Grove is a visionary in my mind. Like that guy's, he sees the future. I don't even know what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight, but that's just the way I operate, and I think I'm really good at operating and overcoming problems on a daily scale. That's my thing. That's where I excel. But one of the mistakes in the beginning was trying to force myself into a visionary role, and trying to force myself to be something I wasn't caused me a lot of headache, because I would sit and dwell on problems that I paralysis by analysis, right? I'm analyzing this so hard that instead of making actions at all, I just wouldn't do any, right? Because it felt better to not do it than it would be to just make a plan and go, right? And that was the part of me that wanted to solve the problem so that it fixed all solutions in the future, which was totally false. That was never going to happen. I just couldn't get past that. Um, so instead of doing that, I just wouldn't solve the problem. I would fix it for now. That was my biggest mistake. One of my second biggest mistakes is what I touched on earlier is not knowing my metrics from the get go, right? I
Yeah.
wanted to tell people that I had made a $500,000 business, but I didn't realize and I didn't understand the metrics to begin with. So therefore, I can make $500,000 and bring home less than 100,000 and go, what happened to all my money? And then, that was the operator part of me. It's like, hey, man, what happened? You
Yeah.
know, and so it sounds crazy, and somebody who's just starting out and they're making 10,000 to $20,000 a month, they're like, "There's no way you could do that." Trust me, yes, there is,
Yeah.
and you will do it, and you will look back and you'll go, "What the hell was I thinking?" Especially what I would consider myself to be in Fire Dogs now, and kind of seeing some bigger numbers and metrics and go, "Golly, like." What in the world? You
Yeah.
know?
Well, and I'm sure that's probably open. You were already pretty much like, I think you had lofty goals already to begin with. You know what I mean, and the where you wanted to be. But I would imagine that probably gave you an idea of like numbers that you're like, I don't want to say that you didn't think were possible, but like seeing them makes them more possible. I feel like being around people who are achieving that makes it more possible and more real, I guess is the way to put it, right? So that's why I like these interviews too. It's like, for somebody who might be at like, maybe they only did 5K or a couple thousand this month, like that same person can reach these numbers that you're talking about. Is it going to be hard and take hard work? Absolutely. Stop. If you're looking for that secret on YouTube where somebody's going to get you to 1 million tomorrow, you can keep watching those videos, but you're going to have to work. Like, it's going to be work. And I should touch on that really quick. So the work involved. What would you say to somebody who is at 5 or 10,000, maybe even 20,000, and they want to get to $1 million operation, or maybe 30K, 40, 50, 60K a month? What do you think is usually the missing piece there in that jump?
Hmm. There's a million ways to answer this question.
There is, yeah.
And I'm trying to find like the most appropriate to capture everything that I'm trying to say. I think one of the ways, the biggest way to to get to that, you know, next level, I should say, is really focus on many aspects of advertising. I think it's so easy for all of us to go, let's do Facebook ads and Google ads. Great. That's wonderful. But in conjunction with that needs to be a lot of other things. I'm not saying that Facebook and Google ads are bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. You need them. What I'm saying is everybody forgets repeat customers are going to be a gold mine. So don't forget about those people.
100%.
Do the emails, do the text messages, do everything you can to retain those customers, because as you're growing, acquisition cost is going to get higher. A customer that you've already paid for is one that you don't have to pay for again. Your customer acquisition cost now becomes divided by 2 when that customer uses you again, right? So do the things that you don't think is going to work. That's what I'm trying to get at. Do all of the avenues. And if you're making the $5,000 to $10,000 a month, you probably don't have a place in Google ads and Facebook ads yet. There's probably not a place for you yet there, because you're gonna get your budget blown out of the water. Go back to the text messages and the emails. They're just fairly cheap, and that something that you could do fairly easily.
Yeah.
Put out the yard signs, put out the door hangers. Go hand out the flyers. Do the boots on the ground stuff that you've got to do um, before you start trying to go big into the uh, digital digital stuff.
No, I absolutely 100% agree. And it's funny coming from someone who's kind of running a marketing agency right now. We're different, right?
Yeah,
We don't just do Google ads, we do the repeat business and we do the outreach and stuff. But
yeah,
our sole, most of our business is focused on the Google ads and the Facebook ads, right? And SEO. But I always say, because I notice a lot of times, and it's usually the companies who are, I'll typically say under 20K and 15K usually. what happens is they start spending on Google, and their budget's going to be lower than where you guys are at, right? Usually they might spend in total maybe 1,500 or 2K on an ads platform, right? Just to get going and get the juices flowing a little bit. And they immediately stop everything else. They won't do any more yard signs. They won't do any more door hangers. They won't do any of the things that got them to that point, because now they're on the digital side and they're like, well, now the digital side's going to do all the work for me. And I always said the best way to take advantage of the digital side, in my opinion, is to not only do the digital side, but keep doing everything else and use it to your advantage to fuel the digital side. So for instance, for example, if you're running Google ads and you get in a neighborhood, one of your prime neighborhoods, why not put down a yard sign in that area? You acquired this customer via Google ads. Now let's say you put a yard sign down and you get 2 more in the neighborhood. Now your acquisition costs that you just use on Google, now you just acquired a couple more people for a very low cost option, right? Or the door hangers. So a lot of it is creativity and willing to put in the legwork required.
That's the big ticket.
And most people, the separator is going to be, they're going to be willing to run the ads and do the extra. A lot of people are not. They're going to just rest on their laurels. They'll get their calls on Google, they'll go do the job, and they're going to wait for the phone to ring. The biggest people in your area right now are not waiting for the phone to ring. They got resources in a lot of different areas to get the phone to ring. And I promise you, if that phone isn't ringing, they're doing everything in their power to get it to ring.
Yeah, agreed. And it brings it back to a point. You said, well, we're an agency or an advertising agency. Absolutely. But if you had these people coming in over and over and they'd spend $1,500 a month, we're just talking about business now, $1,500 a month, and then they're gone from business in 4 months, that's not going to be any fun. But if you push these people back and go, hey, look, you need to go here first, and then these people come back in a year and they spend $2,000 all the way up to $9,000 to $11,000 a month for the next 5 years. Well, now you're really both accomplishing something. You know what I mean? And I know that you're a good dude, and you don't want to see these people just come in, spend $1,500 and then go out of business. Nobody wants that.
No. Now and that's why we built the things. And obviously not here to talk about my business. Just want to give them insights. But
for sure.
That's why what we built, it's almost more consulting level at this point, because we are literally like hand in hand. Hey, do this, do that. Even things that we're not doing. Like we got ad guys who we're doing ads for, we're not even doing organic, and we're looking at our organic approach and saying, hey, you're missing something. Or we're listening to sales calls and going over and critiquing them on sales, because I get to hear how a $1.5 million or $2 million operation is doing their sales, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have that leverage. So you're right. And I'll tell you, I speak to a lot of people and I'm like, you're not quite ready yet. Do this, this, and this. And then we can get started. And here's your level of expectation if we do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the norm is the norm of selling in this space is, I guarantee this, or you'll do this X amount in 30 days. And these crazy things that are usually very unrealistic, unless you really worked hard. And you can't just assume that someone on the other side is going to work hard, because that is not always the case. I've seen that play out, where they're just kind of more complacent and not as aggressive, and almost looking for something else to be the aggressor instead of them. And that's usually fear-based, by the way. Typically, there's usually something fear-based on sales or being in front of people that drives that typically. But a lot of great stuff here. Really appreciate you being on here. I know I don't want to keep you on here all day for the sake of time, although I'm sure there's a ton of other nuggets that I could have gotten from you. Final words, last opinions on anything regarding your business, helping people at certain scales of theirs. What do you got to kind of recap this? And once again, I really appreciate you hopping on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure, man. Last little nugget I can throw out there is a lot of times I get asked, like, what's the key to business? What's the key to business? Well, there's like a million different keys. But I've always said perseverance and problem solving. Those are the only two things you got to do, really. And I'm using problem solving very loosely, right? If you don't have any jobs, that's a problem. You got to go solve it. If You didn't make any money last month, but you put $30,000 in revenue. That's a problem. You got to solve it, right? I'm using that very loosely, but continuing to solve those problems and then persevere through it. That's all it boils down to. That's it. That's all you got to do. And you just got to keep going. It's gonna suck for a long time. Like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years, and I was a full-time fireman for 10 years. So there's a light on the other end of that tunnel, but you definitely can't see it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because somebody's going to hear that. And I'm like, it's going to suck for a while. Why would I do this? Well, there's some good stuff on the other end of that tunnel. There's a lot of freedom involved. It's going to take some work to get there, but it is when you do get there, I do believe it is worth it. I do genuinely believe that. As someone who came from a background of working with a company for 9 years and reaching all those commissions and being here's the ceiling and you're there and there's nowhere else you can go. That is the great thing about entrepreneurs, about being an entrepreneur and a business owner is, well, there really is truly no ceiling. You always have ways to continue, but you're going to have to keep climbing that ladder. And when you're at the bottom of that ladder, it's a long climb.
Yeah. It's going to be a journey.
Yeah, it's going to be a journey. But really appreciate you hopping on, man. Love what you guys are doing over there. I know Fire Dawgs has some big things planned. I'm not going to dive into that. But just keep your eyes out. I know your business is going to continue to flourish, man. You're an amazing dude, got an amazing company and everything that you're building over there. I love it. Thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you.
All right.